Hello everyone, this is Harrison Wright with SAMPS, that is serving sales and marketing professionals in scientific research. I'm here also with Andy Bertera, who is Executive Director of Marketing with New England Biolabs. On the 18th of June, SAMPS will be holding a conference in Gothenburg in Sweden, and Andy will be presenting a talk entitled The Importance of Reputation and How to Use It to Attract and Keep Loyal Customers. Now Andy, in your abstract you mentioned that you're going to explore how a company's values play a role in the development of their customer experiences and how both this and the brand they embody can result in long-term customer loyalty. And I think that's a really intriguing theme, the connection between values and customer experiences. Could you give us a little insight here?
I'd be happy to, Harrison, but before that, it's great to make your acquaintance again. I know we've interacted in the past. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk with you today. So firstly, to your question of values, I truly believe that the values of a company are why people actually stay with that company. They obviously manifest themselves in what you do, the ways of working of that company, as well as the behavior of the actual staff involved. In NEB's case, our values really come in three forms. They are passion for science, and we believe very strongly that conveys through to everything we do in terms of the decisions we make, how we actually market and sell our products, exactly, etc. Because that passion for science also means passion for scientists and the work they actually do. Our second value is humility, which is a bit of a strange one when you think about it, as me heading up the marketing organization. But being humble is important to us. We don't believe in sort of simply blowing our own trumpet, let's say. We believe very strongly that our actions speak louder than our words. And as a consequence of that, we prefer our customers to actually tell everybody, what we do and how we do it. And the last one is perhaps the more difficult of the three to actually understand, and that's being genuine. Being genuine to us really means what you see is what you get. We don't sort of, hide behind or try and tell mistruths about what we can and can't do. We really sort of focus on, doing what we're best at, and hopefully our customers will actually reward us for that. So as a consequence, I really do believe that the values of a company are essential to their makeup, and then that sort of manifests it through to all of the different touch points you have, and thus your customer experience that you give to your customers, and in turn and over time that builds a reputation and hopefully customer loyalty.
Makes total sense, Andy, and I think it's I don't think I'm overstating it by saying that it's a pretty well-known, I don't know if fact is the right word, but observation that NEB are the gold standard or even the platinum standard, if you like, when it comes to customer experience in this industry. How much of a factor do you think the values of the company have been in that?
I really do think they've been paramount because, as I highlighted, I think they shape our thinking of how we actually operate. Maybe it's best given if I give you an example. So this one goes back into the realms of history of the company, but we were one of the first and still actually produce a print catalog. We only produce it every other year today versus every year as it was in prior times. But unlike most catalogs, or most catalogs as was, it's not just a list of the products and perhaps their prices. It's actually a technical reference guide. So the latter part of the catalog is really a group of information about how our products work, how different scientific procedures can be calculated, and things of that nature. And we find that customers actually keep those catalogs, or keep their favorite version of it perhaps, with dog-eared, folded over pages, or perhaps post-it notes on various pages, so they have a quick reference to those technical details that they use in the planning of their experiments. And I think that helps to sum up well the sort of way we think about things. So we try to put science first, hence our sort of passion for science. And by highlighting those technical support references, if you like, more than we do the products, we're trying to actually achieve that by putting science first. And we hope that our customers actually resonate with that way of thinking.
I think it shows the importance of starting with foundational principles. And what I mean by that is maybe a bit of a contrarian view, but I speak with a lot of people, less so now than 2 years ago, admittedly. I think people are seeing things in a better light nowadays, but I speak with a lot of people who, can you get me leads? I want leads, and there's a very narrow focus on some end result, whether it be leads or sales or revenue or whatever else. But it's important to build the foundational infrastructure that delivers leads, revenue, or whatever else from first principles. In this case, like you say, you start with the values, and the values influence the customer experience, and of course the product development and every other aspect of the delivery of the company. And then once you have those things in place, then you can think about how that turns into leads and sales and revenue. It seems to me a much more sustainable and of course genuine way of going about things.
I would totally agree. I mean, we're fortunate in that we are private, so that does sort of give us some advantages, let's say, over public companies. But obviously, I don't want to also downplay the importance of revenue and profit. We are a for-profit company, so we do have to, make money, because that allows us to do what we can do and support, obviously, scientific research. But I agree fully with you in that context of leads. If you build a reputation, and that reputation, in our case, we believe is built on our values and the various customer experiences that we deploy, then that makes the generation of those leads a lot easier. If a customer or researcher sees an email or an advert, or even speaking to a sales representative, and they can understand obviously the benefits of the product, but if there's no context in which to set it in terms of who is this company I'm buying from, do I know they'll actually be in business? Will they be acquired by somebody next year? Is their support any good? What's their pricing sort of philosophy? Then all those questions almost have to be answered before you really say, okay, am I going to invest in buying that product, regardless of how much it costs? And I think NEB, having built that reputation over time, many of those questions are already answered. So we don't, and I wouldn't pretend a customer knows every product that we actually sell, but whether it's an existing product or a new product that they haven't heard of, they can put the context, oh, I know NEB, I bought products for this experiment. I know they actually work very well. They're reproducible. They have good technical support, or whatever sort of experience they had. And that helps them to actually assess whether they're going to take the risk and evaluate this new product or new product to them.
Makes absolute sense. And I think the other aspect of this here that we haven't talked about as well is that it strikes me that this approach, this philosophy, creates a virtuous circle, in that if you have a very loyal customer base that's been built over many years through building a good reputation, through solid values and everything else, then that's going to create stability in the company's revenues and take care of any cash flow issues that might arise with companies that always think short term, and therefore you can afford to invest more in things that don't necessarily tie directly to a revenue number.
I totally agree with that as well. I think it also builds longevity in your staff. Our average tenure is something like 13 years at the moment, and I think the values that we actually have fit in with, the staff's personal values, means that it's somewhere where people want to work. And when you have that sort of longevity, it means those individuals, whatever they actually do, whether they're actually in customer service, taking orders, technical support, answering technical questions, or even packing the actual products in shipping, they're always thinking of those values and how do the interactions they have with customers get sort of communicated. So I think that longevity of staff helps to actually portray and build longevity of the relationship with your customer as well. Consistency, I guess, what I'm trying to say in that.
Well, it's like Richard Branson said, I can't remember the exact words, but it's a famous quote that seems to do the rounds on LinkedIn at least once a month, by Richard Branson, saying, if you take care of the staff, they'll take care of the customers.
Yeah, no, it's a very good quote, and I think very true, because particularly in today's digital world, unfortunately, if you have a poor interaction with a customer, and that customer so desires, then they can spread that poor interaction very quickly through social media or through whatever internet channel that actually exists. So making sure every touch point that you have with a customer is as good as it can possibly be and is consistent with your core values, and in our case, as they manifest themselves with customers, our brand values, is key. And that's something we try to work at every day.
That's something that could be a whole topic and whole series of talks in itself. I would say that the internet has made business much more meritocratic and also values driven by necessity.
Mm-hmm. It definitely has. It definitely adds a different overlay. You know, I gave the example of the catalog, which is as far from the internet as you could possibly imagine. But I also would highlight that I think one of the things that a reputation gives you, a good reputation I should obviously highlight, is it does allow you to actually take some risks. And I think in today's digital age and the sort of fast changing and new opportunities that exist for communicating with your customers, if you have a good reputation, you can actually experiment with different media and different ways of communicating with your customers. And I even say it's actually critical because different generations, but not even just different generations, different individuals and segments obviously prefer to communicate in different ways. Whether that's use my example of the catalog, whether that's through our website, whether that's through social media, or what have you. You have to think about all these different ways to communicate. One example I'd sort of highlight, which is a definitely experiment for us, is we recently launched a Amazon Alexa skill. I'm sure listeners are familiar with Amazon and their various Alexa and skill devices they actually have. These are sort of voice-activated, voice-controlled devices. And we built what's called a skill. It's like an app, if you like, where customers can actually interact with that voice-activated unit and ask questions about what cut sites exist for restriction enzymes, what buffers are used, etc. I don't know whether that's going to be successful or not, but we feel it was a new medium that is worth experimenting with, staying true to our values and being focused on science, not about the commercial aspects that could be tied with that, and we'll see where it goes.
Absolutely. I've got one more question for you, Andy, playing devil's advocate for a moment. So the core of this comes down to building loyalty through reputation and by extension through values at the front end. Mm-hmm. New England Biolabs, of course, is a company that sells products that people use on a regular basis. I would imagine once you win a customer, they'll tend to purchase numerous things on a recurring basis for many years. Mm-hmm. How would the utility of this be different for, say, a capital equipment company, where maybe someone buys something once every 10 years or maybe even less than that?
Yeah, I think that the principles still exist, very much so. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of good examples of smaller but also even larger organizations that have built up that reputation. You are right that a piece of equipment, capital equipment purchase, is a longer-term investment. But in some ways, because of that, the reputation is actually critical. But there are different elements to it. If you think about the post-purchase experience, then the relationship with the service engineer is actually key to that. Does that company have local service engineers so that if my instrument goes down, I get somebody out in 24 hours to help fix it? Does that service engineer know what I do with the instrument? Are they somebody I can relate to? Because I'm trusting them to come into my laboratory, if that's the case, to actually see what I'm doing and actually help me get up and running more rapidly. And I think that relationship, that reputation that you build, is why that customer then is going to buy version 2 of that instrument, or hopefully version 3 of that instrument, maybe even earlier than perhaps the lifetime of the instrument has sort of exhausted. So I believe it still holds true, although there are different sort of touch points and different types of experiences that need to be thought through.
Thank you. It makes a lot of sense. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in Gothenburg.
Yeah, my pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you there in person and hopefully expanding on some of the points we just discussed.
Very much so. To everyone listening, we would really love to see you there. Andy, of course, will be speaking, as well as a number of other great speakers who you can find online. You can actually register online at sampsoc.org. I'll spell that for you. That's SAM for mother, PSSOC, sampsoc.org. It'll be great to see you there in Gothenburg on the 18th of June. Thanks, everybody.